we have awarded over 300 territories for that one painter, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. We're so excited about that. And so, the reason that we've been able to grow rapidly is because of the people and the systems that we have in place. We have an amazing culture at ResiBrands. We want to have the happiest franchisees on the planet, and we will do whatever it takes to make that happen. And so everybody at ResiBrands understands what their role in helping franchise owners be successful and being happy with their businesses are. And so, we pretty quickly realized the back-end systems that support painting can support other home services brands as well. It's really fun to help people finally realize their dream of being a business owner and being able to support them in that process.
Hey everyone, we are on episode 31 of the Conquer the Mind podcast. I appreciate everyone tuning in today. I'm very excited to kind of dive into today's episode. Some really cool things happening in the franchise world with ResiBrands. So Kristen, I'm really excited. Thank you for joining me today on the Conquer the Mind podcast. Kristen is the franchise developer of ResiBrands, parent company of 3 really incredible home service brands right now. But Kristen has a really cool story that we're going to dive into today. And I'm honestly really interested to see where the conversation goes. It could go a bunch of different directions, but Kristen has personally owned franchise and businesses and really built them from the ground up. She's a strong component of the franchise business model. I always find it interesting to get someone's perspective that has started independent businesses and then goes to the franchising model, because every candidate, they're always like, I could do this myself, or why don't I just do it myself, or why am I paying $50,000 for this? So I think your perspective will be really interesting, Kristen. And also I want to throw in, you actually started off as a college advisor, helping college students kind of figure out their purpose, their meaning. So I think it goes really, really well with just the name of the podcast, with Conquer the Mind. And for me, I always say on the podcast, I was so lost in college. I had a different, what is it? When you go to college, you kind of have like a designated person that's kind of giving you advice throughout. I'm blanking on the name of that, Kristen.
Typically, it's an advisor.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. I know for me, I had a different advisor every single semester, and every time they scared the hell out of me. They were like, you can't get C's, you need to switch schools. And every time I left, just calling my parents saying, I'm sorry, but I think I need to transfer. Like, they scared the hell out of me every time. So Kristen, I'm really excited. I know that's not the advice that you were giving students. So I could have really used someone like yourself when I was in college. So Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share more about kind of this journey and what we're all doing. And yeah, I've had a kind of unique trajectory that I think gives me a lot of insight into just career development, which applies whether you're a college student or applies, if you're thinking about buying a franchise. Like, it's all career development. It's all that trajectory. And it's what I really care about and enjoy talking about. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, Chris. I'm really excited. I think I'd kind of like to start off, for a lot of people, we've switched it up a little bit, but typically I kind of like to hear the different stories of people, especially after college. As I alluded to, I was very lost, and I was very fortunate in a quick amount of time to figure out what my mission, my why was. But most people, they go 20, 30 years in corporate America, and they're still trying to figure out that mission, that why. And, I can see, exactly kind of what your mission, your why statement is. So can you help us walk through, you graduated from college? Did you have any idea, what you wanted to do? What were kind of those next steps after college for you, Kristen?
Yeah. So, I graduated from college with a degree in behavioral sciences. So it was a mix of psychology and sociology. I think I always thought that I really wanted to go and be like a counselor or psychologist. And so, I knew that would require grad school. So I knew right away that I wasn't going to grad school just yet. That was something that I would do down the line. But it just kind of happened that I made really good connections. And I talk about networking a lot because it has benefited me from the very beginning. But I, had some really good connections at the University of Texas at Austin, and was doing a research project there, and ended up kind of falling into a position as an academic advisor, which really suited my skill set well. Like it took a lot of those counseling components and it combined it with academics, which is something that I really enjoyed as well. And so I was able to help students walk through, what it is that they wanted to do with their life, help them figure out the path to do that. And then also, academic advising isn't just about telling people what courses to take or what grades they need to have. It's about helping them understand how to integrate, all of these experiences into this kind of making it college a meaningful experience for them and integrating, things that are outside of the classroom. And so I really enjoyed all of that. I spent about 5 years helping social work students specifically. And then I went back to grad school, got a degree in educational psychology. At that point, thought I was going to go the counseling route because that's what I had always planned to do. Yeah. And I did that for a little bit and quickly found that it wasn't the right fit for me. And I have a deep appreciation for it. Who knows, maybe someday I'll go back and do it. Probably not. But I found that what I really enjoyed was kind of more in the educational space. And so I went back, worked with engineering for students for 7 years after that. And really just found a lot of value in helping students figure out how to navigate the university space and how to navigate what it is that they wanted to do with their lives. And so then around that time, around the end of that was when the pandemic happened. I had 3 small kids. My husband had 2 businesses. He was really needing help with it. And I was really stressed from trying to handle a really intense job with 3 small kids. We had these businesses that were going on in the background. It was just a lot. And so I made the decision that I was going to step back from that career and help, kind of build up these businesses. And so, meanwhile, my husband had started a health insurance business, and I had been kind of helping in the background as I was able to. And so he had started that. And then meanwhile, also, he really enjoyed networking. He was doing a really good job with it. And I kept saying, hey, do you think that we can find a way to monetize just you networking? Because it's doing great for the health insurance business, but you're spending so much time doing this. Surely there's a way that we can monetize this. And lo and behold, there was a franchise that was about networking. And so he ended up being approached by the franchisor asking if he would be interested in buying a franchise. And so he and a business partner and I decided it seemed kind of like an answer to what we had kind of been saying in the background. And so we decided to do that, became multi-unit franchise owners from there. And so when I left my job, it was really to help build up the franchise and then to help with the background of the health insurance business as well. And, did that for a couple of years and then ended up getting introduced to ResiBrands. And it was everything that I wished I had had in a franchise. And so I was like, nope, I'm going to switch focus. I'm going to help this brand grow. That's what I really want to do. And it's really got a lot of similarities in a lot of ways of what I was doing before. It's not college students that I'm talking through career development. It's adults who have resources, but are wrestling with the same questions. They're wrestling with the exact same questions. How do I do what I want to do with my life? How do I do that? And so that is a long-winded answer to bring us up to date and how I'm here now.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing all of that, Kristen. I really appreciate that. And I'll allude that to the previous guest on the podcast, Rob Flanagan. He similar graduated with a psychology degree and kind of realized he was like, I got out of psychology where I was listening to people's problems, where I moved to franchising where I'm just listening to people's problems. So it's interesting how, you may not always know what that final step may look like, but you just start taking steps forward, figuring out what you like. I'm sure at the time psychology was interesting to you. And now you're able to implement that into what you're doing today, which I think is just a really great lesson for anyone out there because nobody knows what that step 10, that step 20, that step 100 is going to look like. But figure out what's important to you now, what kind of skills you can develop. And that kind of leads me into, I'd love to kind of ask you, Kristen, when you were like an advisor, you're dealing with a lot of college students and, I'm sure some very know what they want to do and some are totally lost. And then some in between, some have parents, really great mentors, some the other way around. So I'm sure you're dealing with kids in all of these different buckets, which I think is really interesting. But what was like the advice that you're hearing from these kids? As you know, a lot of people, they're not necessarily sure what they want to do in life, but what's your advice to that person that doesn't know what they're wanting to do in life, but they're going through college, they're taking courses, and the courses still aren't really helping them figure out what they want to do? What's your advice to that person kind of struggling to figure out what they want to do like post college?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I think it is an unrealistic expectation that our culture has that a 17, 18-year-old is going to be able to identify a major and figure out a career path at that age. You don't even know all of the options that are out there. The options that you might ultimately go with probably don't even exist at this point. I certainly I didn't know what a franchise was at that age. It took me a long time to know some of those things. So I just think it's to start with an unrealistic expectation. I would like for 17, 18-year-olds, college students, early 20s, I would like all of them to just kind of take that pressure off of themselves, that they have to know what it is that they're going to do with their lives, because you don't. Your life is going to take you in so many different directions that you don't even know with. And what's more important right now is for you to explore your interests, set yourself up for a successful future, really kind of gain whatever skills you can at this point in time and build your network. College, I think a lot of times, I see a lot of people who are saying college isn't a great path anymore. It's so expensive, yada, yada. And that's fine. Like I understand that. For me, one of the most important things in college is building your network. Those people who you are friends with are the people who you're going to be able to call 20, 30 years down the line and be able to ask for career advice or do business deals or be able to get an in at that company. Like college is paramount for building your network. And so spend time doing that. And I'm not saying go out and party every weekend necessarily, but I am saying invest in the relationships. I think that's the biggest thing. And then just academically, do well in your classes, like set yourself up for success. Like you want to be able to set yourself up so that you can explore many different avenues later on if you want to. But also like explore your interests, right? Like it doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't have to be so like tedious. Like explore what interests you. You have no idea where that is going to lead you in life. So just be kind of authentic to what it is that you're interested in. And you know what? Like also, if you don't want to be in college right now, you can go back later. Like you don't have to do it right this second. Like I would rather somebody like take a step back if they're just like really like miserable and unhappy than force your way through it. So build your network, explore your interests, develop your skills, and just kind of be authentic to where you are in life.
I love that, Chris. I'm honestly really fired up. Like that's just really great advice. Like I feel like even just myself, like I always felt like I had to know exactly what I wanted to do. And I remember the most dreaded question for me was when I was in college, you go to like Christmas parties, you go see different relatives or family friends, and it's, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or what do you want to do after college? And it hurt me every single time because it was just like, I have no idea. Like I'm just trying to have fun in college and still like not necessarily understanding exactly what I want to do. I'm taking courses, not doing even great in courses and still not helping me at all with what I want to do. So I think that's just really great advice. Like, don't compare yourself to someone that does have their career figured out. That's what I love so much about this podcast, speaking to successful people like yourself. Like people did not necessarily know where they would be today. And, raising a family, a business owner, like it just all starts with figuring out what interests you, what skills you like. So I think that would kind of lead me into like my next question in terms of when you're in college, you're trying to develop these skills, these characteristics to kind of figure out what you like. How do you kind of like go about that? A lot of people, it takes a lot of even confidence to start trying new things, getting uncomfortable. What advice do you have someone to just start developing different skills in college that may not be, what they want to do, but just developing different skills may lead to something else, if that makes sense, Kristen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think kind of the classic answer is like take classes about it, but that's not always an option, right? Like sometimes a degree plan or a university doesn't have, all of those electives. You don't have all of that time and money to spend on that. So I think that's kind of like the classic answer. And if that's an option, then great. But I think that one of the great things about college is that there are so many different student organizations, clubs, those kinds of things that explore every single different thing that you could imagine. And so if you can capitalize on that, that's one really great place to do that. I know that at the University of Texas at Austin, which is obviously a gigantic university, so there is going to be more there than there might be at a like small liberal arts school. But I mean, there were organizations for students who wanted to like practice a foreign language and they wanted to be paired up with somebody from that country. There were organizations about sales and entrepreneurship. There were organizations about all of those things. And I think that's one piece of it. Also, really taking advantage of any mentorship opportunities that are offered to you. I mean, if somebody is offering you a mentor, I say you take it every single time, as far as I'm concerned, because you never know what you're going to learn from that other person. You never know the pathways that are going to be opened up from that. It might not be something that's overly exciting to you, but that might be because you haven't had that inside look into what it looks like. So like, for example, I worked with engineering students. I mean, engineering sounds pretty cut and dry, you know, technical, whatever. But when I would pair students with current engineers and they got to actually get first, you know, hand knowledge of what the projects they were working on, how those projects were impacting other people, how it was making society as a whole better. All of a sudden, the whole world opened up to them. And the reason that they were doing these kind of dry technical things made sense because they were going to ultimately be able to go and have a much bigger impact on the world than they had any idea about. And so, you know, take advantage of mentorship, be involved in student organizations, and just say yes to things. You don't have to say yes to everything, you know, be smart about it, but it is scary. It is. I also, like, I tell people all the time, I own networking groups. I get nervous going networking too. Like, it is normal and it is totally fair to be nervous about things. But sometimes, you know, having a plan in your head of how you're going to approach it and just going and starting, that's the hardest part. So just like get over that hardest part. Just go and do it anyways, even though it's terrifying. It will only get easier as time goes on. And so going and doing that, I think, is really important. So, you know, do the academics, but also do all of these other things as well.
Yeah. No, these are really great points. And, you know, I wish I kind of had some of this advice growing up. I did not take advantage of the connections in college and really understanding that aspect as much. And that's something, if I could do college over again, I'd literally just shake as many hands as possible. Anytime I ever saw someone, just shake their hand, not even trying to do anything with that, but just trying to introduce myself, getting new insights, new perspectives. Unfortunately for me in college, I was still kind of living in my own world, still only focusing on myself, kind of living in a bubble to a certain extent. So I think if anyone's like lost out there, like this is just such incredible advice that I honestly wish I could have taken advantage of some of those things a little bit better. And I really like the point of just like mentorship, networking, connections. You know, I just joined a business networking international networking group. And your point exactly that I want to highlight that's so interesting is people will go to these networking groups. They want to network with each other, but you'll see people will just kind of walk by each other and still like not say anything, or people will kind of like stand there with their hands in their pockets because everyone has this initial fear of discomfort. But it's just getting over that hump, because once you say hi to that person with their hands in their pockets, after 5-10 seconds, they start opening up and you realize everyone really does like other people. I don't know if I necessarily believe the introvert versus extrovert, you know, thing. I've kind of been on both ends throughout my life, but I think a lot of it is just kind of that inner confidence. I do believe everyone likes having conversations with people. You know, I don't even know how to say it, but I think you just live a lot longer if you have better connections, better relationships. So I think it just goes really far for people. And one of the things I'm always pondering, because mentorship, networking, connections is so, so important. But for a lot of people, you know, you're going through the motions, like the idea of finding that mentor, you know, if you find them, you can really fast track your career. But how do you actually find that mentor? And Kristen, one question I'm always kind of curious about is, do you think you have to proactively seek mentors? Or if you're doing the right things, a mentor will you can kind of manifest a mentor almost. What are your kind of thoughts on proactively seeking mentorship, or just doing the right things and, you know, it'll just show up and not necessarily worrying about it?
I think both are true. I absolutely think that both are true. You know, there are going to be opportunities in your life where somebody hands you a mentor in essence. And that, you know, that's going to happen more in college or in training programs or things like that.
Mm.
And always say yes if that's offered to you. But then, once you're kind of out in the like real world, then at that point, I do think that there is truth to, if you, kind of set your path and you're being, proactive about it, that it will come to you to some extent. If people see you doing the right things, they're going to want to be in line with you and they're going to want to help you succeed. And so I've had it happen both ways, where I've proactively gone to, a supervisor or something and said, hey, I really need a mentor. Can you help me find this? And they've helped me find it. But I've also had it happen where I just stood out because I was putting myself out there and I was putting myself in a position for other people to see me, whether I should have been in that position or not. I was still putting myself in there. And then other people came along the way and said, okay, I see what you're doing. I see that you're serious about this. Like, let's help you get to that next step. And so I think it goes both ways. One of the things that I talk about sometimes is, I've had some cool things happen in my life, but it didn't happen because I was just lucky. It happened because I was willing to put myself out there and I was willing to put myself in that space. And that part of that has been attracting mentors who've been able to really help me grow and develop in a lot of different ways.
That's awesome, Kristen. I like kind of how you took both ends of that. And I think, something I try to do as well, where you proactively want to find these people that are kind of living the life you want, proactively reach out to them, see what kind of connections you can, but then also just focusing on yourself on the daily basis. If you continually put yourself in that position, I think it's similar to kind of like dating relationship advice. And I'm in the last position, I'm single, I'm 25 years old, very few relationships in terms of that. But I feel like, you kind of build the connections, the relationships, but it really starts with like focusing on yourself before you focus externally on kind of finding that other half, if you will, but really just manifesting yourself. You've developed the skills, the traits, just focusing on yourself. And then that confidence comes to really attract other people into your life, I think is something really interesting, Kristen. So I want to dive now kind of more into the business ownership before we dive into ResiBrands as well. I know, so you kind of, you're going through this, your work, you're raising a family, you're also a college advisor, your husband owns the insurance business, and now you're making that investment into a franchise opportunity. Can you kind of walk the viewers through, like, what was that like decision-making process like to find the franchise? How did you, the joke's like you have family or you fall into franchising. What was it like kind of falling in?
Terrifying, if I'm being totally honest. I didn't really know anything about the franchise world. And it was really about kind of trusting the universe, if you will, that this was the right opportunity for us because, so like I had said, my husband was networking a lot. He was doing really great. And I was, encouraging him to consider if there were ways for him to monetize this. And I didn't have any idea what it looked like. I just had this gut feeling that this was something he was so passionate about. He was so passionate about making connections. And I was so passionate about making connections, although my experience had been different than his. Mine had been more in kind of a education, corporate kind of a setting of doing that, versus his was going and actively going to networking groups. And so we had these different experiences, but we both believed so strongly in networking and had experienced such positive things as a result of it. And so, when he was approached about, our networking group is called Network in Action, NIA. It's the second biggest networking group next to BNI, which you made reference to. So, it's definitely something that was needed in the space. Anyways, so this opportunity was presented to us. The franchisor had approached my husband because he was a leader in BNI, and they were, saying, okay, you're a person who knows, kind of what you're doing with this. Would this be something you were interested in? And when my husband came to me with the idea, I was just like, yeah, I don't know how we're supposed to do this right now. Like, we have the kid at that point, we had 2 small kids. I was working 1 million hours a week. He was, doing this other business as well, but he just really felt that it was the right thing. And in my gut, I knew that like this was the answer to what we had been looking for. So honestly, I didn't really understand a lot about franchising at that point. I understood that there was a franchise fee. I understood that there was royalty. But beyond that, I didn't really understand the systems and the structure that there was in place. And it wasn't until, we really started building this and I was able to see how much faster we were able to scale it in comparison to the other business, and how much, with the other business, with the health insurance business, there was so much of, let's see what works with marketing. Let's see what works with this. Let's see what works with that. And it was really hard to get it going. It was really hard to kind of pinpoint what was going to help us grow and be successful. And we didn't have all of that with the networking group. We didn't have all of that with NIA. And, one of the things that we talk about at ResiBrands is, franchising is kind of like helping you skip past step 0 to 1 and jump right into going from step 1 to step 2. And that step 0 to 1 was really hard with the health insurance business. We were almost at the point of, you need to go and get just a regular job again before it finally worked out. That didn't happen with the networking business. And like, also, we started NIA right before the pandemic hit. So it's not like we had an easy time of it, but even with COVID and everything that was happening, we were still able to scale just so much faster because of the systems, because of the name recognition, because of all of these things that come along with franchising. And that's when I really became a big fan of franchising. I don't think that it's something that I ever would have been willing to consider before. It just happened to work out that we ended up with a franchise. And now I am just a huge proponent of it because I've seen for myself just how quickly it allowed us to accelerate as compared to going on our own.
No, that's really fascinating, Kristen. That's what I hear from like a lot of big successful entrepreneurs out there. That step 0 to 1 is the hardest part. I was just listening to a big YouTuber with Graham Stephan yesterday, who very big finance personality on YouTube. And he said steps 0 through 5 are the hardest part. And if you're going to help people, those are the steps you want to focus in on, because that's where most people are. Once you're on step 5, you start getting acquired to, as you alluded to, you're going to build connections through those steps. And at that point, you're going to have more higher level connections, relationships, or resources. So the hardest part, I agree, is getting your foot off the ground. But it's just really hard to take that leap of faith into business ownership, especially coming from corporate America. So I'd be curious, Kristen, especially raising a family during the pandemic. A lot of people, they're weighing the decision-making process of business ownership, and is this the right time for me right now? Do you think there's ever like a right time to make that investment into a franchise, into a business, or is there's never a right time?
There's never a right time to do it. I mean, I certainly wasn't at the right time to do it. We had small kids and a mortgage and all of these things. I think it's just one of those things that you just have to take a leap. You just do. And it's scary. And I'm never going to tell somebody that it's not scary. If you're not scared, you're not taking it seriously. So I take being scared as a good sign. You are taking this seriously, which is going to help you do better. And so embrace that fear for what it is. I don't think that there is a best time, an ideal time. If you wait for the best time, it's never going to happen. It just isn't, because there's always going to be something in your life that makes it hard to do it. So, I think if it's something that you're considering, if it's something that you want to do, then I think you should just run with it. I mean, as long as you can get the pieces in place in order to be able to do it, you can get the finances in place, you have the support of your family, you have these things, then I think you run with it, because there's never going to be a right time.
No, that's really helpful, Kristen. And kind of diving off of that, I'd love to, a lot of people are looking at franchising versus independent business ownership. And I think as you've kind of done both ends of the stick and you've worked in corporate America, I think your perspective would be really interesting. A lot of times when people are debating, do I want to do this myself or do I want to invest into a franchise? Sometimes people tell me they feel kind of restricted in a franchise. They feel scared that, what if I don't have complete ownership? What if I can't localize things to my local market? What do you tell that person, as someone that has operated an independent business model as well as a franchise business model, and now you award franchise, so you watch people with that day in the life? Are they restricted? Do they have some self-autonomy? How how much like wiggle room do they have to really be their own business owner? Whereas, are they just buying another corporate job with a franchise?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things with that. One, I think that there's a lot more autonomy than people think that there's going to be with a franchise. I think a lot of times people think I'm walking in and I'm just kind of, like you said, buying a job. But how you choose to operate your business, how you choose to grow, all of these things are important and they matter and they are unique to you. And nobody else is going to be able to do it in the exact same way that you are. On the other hand, one of the reasons to do a franchise is because you're buying a playbook. You're buying a system that you don't have to find on your own. And so there is a little bit of a trade-off, I suppose, in that you are signing on for a system. That system is going to save you a lot of time and it's going to save you a lot of money because you're not going to have to fumble through it. But sometimes that scares people, and I appreciate that. But that is one of the things to understand when you're walking into a franchise. Yes, there is going to be some autonomy. There is going to be a system in place, that there is an expectation that you follow. But there's also going to be a lot of support with that. And so one of the things, this is deviating slightly, but one of the things that I found really challenging about owning an independent business versus a franchise was that with the independent business, it's very isolating. You don't have a lot of people who are around you, who are supporting you, who are, cheering you on, providing you with guidance. And it's like, just being totally honest, it's really lonely sometimes doing that. Even with the networking, even with all of these things that you're doing and you're going out and interacting with people, at the end of the day, it is just you. It is just you. And so with a franchise, the thing that I really appreciated about that was that it wasn't just me. I had other franchise owners who are going through the same things, who are trying to figure out and pick apart things in the same way that we were. We had, people who were with the franchisor who were supporting us and guiding us and giving us insights into things. It was so much less lonely. It felt like I had a team around me. And so, yeah, with that team came a little bit of it's not all about me anymore. It is not just me anymore. But what I gained from it was so much more than what I would have, it was so much more than what I gave up at the end of the day. It was so much more meaningful and impactful to me to do that. So I realize that's kind of an indirect answer to your question, but that's one of the things that I just really appreciated about franchising.
No, I don't even think you deviated. I think that was a really, really great answer and very helpful for a lot of people when you talk about independent business ownership. You really are on an island by yourself. It's just about whatever relationships, connections you've built, and those people probably aren't on a salary. So there's only so much time you can start to take from people. Whereas franchising, it's such a unique industry where I can't really think of another industry where people, top, middle, bottom, they're all aligned to see different people succeed. Whether you're an employee at a franchise, maybe get elevated to a general manager, you're a franchise developer. Some franchise developers own franchise as well. Some franchisees become franchise developers. There's so many room for opportunities. I think a lot of people get very fixated on what that annual income looks like in the FDD rather than this is an opportunity to learn all these skills and have a team by your side that wants to see you grow and succeed. But one kind of final question before I want to dive into ResiBrands, kind of help have the background of ResiBrands, I think is really interesting. But something I hear a lot from candidates as we're kind of talking about, independent business ownership versus franchising. You were kind of alluding to franchising allowed you to scale a lot faster. You got that income opportunity as well. But a lot of people there look at franchise, they see a franchise fee, they see a royalty, and what's that? There's an ad fee as well. And people start saying, 10%, 12%, this is all off my bottom line. What am I really getting with this investment? Can you walk someone through what is the point of a franchise fee, a royalty, and then the ad fee that some franchises have as well?
Yeah. So, I think that regardless of what business it is that you're going into, there are going to be costs associated with getting things up and running, with getting the brand established, all of these things. I personally feel like franchising is a much more transparent approach to understanding what the pricing is. When you're starting the business, you kind of don't really know for sure what all is going to go into building out the brand, getting brand recognition out there, figuring out your marketing, all of these things. And it stacks up and it adds up really, really fast. Versus with the franchise, it's much more transparent. I know exactly what it is that I'm walking in and doing. And so I think that, the franchise fee, the royalties are all designed to get you plugged into the system so that you can tap into the name recognition of something that is much larger than you. I think it's the IFA president, our CEO talks about it a lot, but talks about how franchising is the most democratic distribution of wealth in this country. And it really allows the individual business owner to be able to utilize and tap into a much larger kind of corporate entity that has that brand recognition. And you're just not going to get that when you're floating out there on your own. And it's going to take so much more time to do that. And so I've run the numbers at various points, but definitely I've saved money by doing the franchise, even with, there being the upfront franchise fee, even with there being royalties. Those things are there, not so that the franchise can just go and make a bunch of money off of you. Those things are there so that you can tap into this bigger system, get really fully brought into this brand identity, get all of the supports, all of the different things that are going to help you be successful. And the reason that they're doing those things is because they're tried and true, and they've done them before, and they've replicated it over and over and over again. And you're able to tap into all of that. And that doesn't happen for free. That happens because you are buying into this bigger system, but you know what it is that you're buying into. You understand at the beginning that this is what the expectation is. It's just a lot more transparent, in my opinion, than just kind of trying to figure it out and go it on your own.
No, I think those are really, really great points, Kristen. I'm always kind of fascinated by like when people kind of question the ad fund, for example. So I'll give an example. Like YouTube ads are very expensive. It's a lot of money to run a YouTube ad. And I've been watching YouTube the last couple of days, and I see a specific ad for an independent like tree cleaning service. And, I'm in the franchising industry. There's tons of franchise that do that, give me a much better price, much better resource as well. But it's kind of like when you're an independent business owner, you're just throwing money out there, hoping to find leads, hoping to find customers, but you really have no idea where they're going to come from. And franchising, you have a CEO, a founder that often has like a decade's worth of experience investing into these mistakes, these challenges, so that it's not just where am I going to get my customers, it's you're going to invest X amount so that we can target those customers and follow that playbook. Not let's just continually throw money down the drain and see what we get back. No, we have targeted recipes to help you find those lead generation, to find those customers. So when candidates come in, they're looking for customers, lead generation, that's all going to be part of the playbook. It's just a matter of can you enact that playbook and are you willing to take action with that playbook? So Kristen, I really appreciate those points. And now, without further ado, I would love to kind of hear about ResiBrands. There's some home service companies out there, but can you talk to us about how ResiBrands was initially started and how that happened? I feel like, a few years ago, no one knew what ResiBrands was, and now it's everywhere. And every time I talk to a new franchise consultant, they're even looking to invest into ResiBrands, which I think says a ton about the brand as a whole. When you have franchise consultants who make a living analyzing FDDs, corporate leadership, marketing, and they're investing into ResiBrands. So, Kristen, tell us, what is all the hype about with ResiBrands? What's going on?
Awesome. Yeah, there's a number of franchise consultants that have become franchisees with us, which we are just so honored. Like, you guys know all of the brands that are out there, and to invest with us is just something that we are just so honored. But yeah, so ResiBrands, so it really started with That One Painter. That One Painter was our original company. It was started by our CEO and founder, Stephen Montgomery, and he was just a guy here in Austin, Texas, painting houses, built a really, successful company, was kind of doing his thing. We knew him back then when he was That One Painter. He was that guy. And so, he eventually reached this point of realizing, okay, I'm ready to grow beyond Austin. And so he had initially been looking at, do I expand corporate locations in other major metro areas, or what do I do? And, when he thought about it, it made him really sad to think about this, kind of corporate pyramid with him at the top, and everybody just kind of facilitating this for him. He didn't like that. So he ultimately decided that what he wanted to do was franchise, because it would allow him to take the systems that he has learned over well over a decade. He would be able to take the systems, take all of the lessons, and hand them to somebody else so that they can then go and do it in their area, and be a part of this broader system, but that the business owner have ownership over it. It not just be something that they're doing for him or for, the company. It's something that's theirs, that they feel that ownership over. And so what he really cared about was helping other people start businesses, helping other people be able to, build a legacy for their families, be able to experience freedom from corporate America. And so that's why he ultimately landed on franchising. So we started franchising That One Painter in 2021. To date, we have awarded over 300 territories for That One Painter, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. We're so excited about that. And so, the reason that we've been able to grow rapidly is because of the people and the systems that we have in place. We have an amazing culture at ResiBrands. And I think that ultimately that's why people choose to go with ResiBrands, is because the people who are here truly are invested in the franchise owner's success. We want to have the happiest franchisees on the planet, and we will do whatever it takes to make that happen. And so everybody at ResiBrands understands what their role in helping franchise owners be successful and being happy with their businesses are. And so they are fully invested in that. And so, we pretty quickly realized the back-end systems that support painting can support other home services brands as well. And so that's when we took a step back, rebranded the whole as ResiBrands, so residential brands. So everything is in the home services space, and started adding additional brands in as well. So we've since introduced Garage Up, which is a garage door and more company, garage renovations. And then we have Pink's window cleaning as well. And so we have those 3 brands right now. We will be adding additional brands this year that we're excited about and plan to continue growing, because it's really fun. It's really fun to help people finally realize their dream of being a business owner and being able to support them in that process, and them not feeling like they're alone, them feeling like they have a support system, because we offer a ridiculous amount of support to our franchisees, and they feel so supported in that, and that has allowed them to be so successful. And so we're excited to continue growing.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, Kristen. It's definitely very exciting. I love to see the growth as well of the brand. And I'd be curious, you had a lot of success with That One Painter. It took a while to kind of build the infrastructure, the systems to build that out. What was it like starting to add Garage Up and Pink's window services to that? And what was the decision-making process? How did you determine we want to go to garage, windows? Why not like heating, AC, plumbing, something like that?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things there. So Garage Up, Alan Alarcon is our co-founder of ResiBrands. He and Stephen kind of decided to do ResiBrands together. And he was really passionate about the garage space specifically. It is an underutilized space in the home that we just kind of throw things into, but it is square footage that we have that we should be able to utilize to its max capacity. And so, we really kind of came in and said, we want to build a concept around this. We want to do something a little bit different. So typically franchising, it's, garage doors is one franchise, epoxy floors is a franchise, and then concrete coating and resurfacing is another franchise. But we really wanted to just bring them all into one, so that somebody could go into the garage space and be able to fully renovate that space, do the door, do the floors, storage, overhead lighting, fancy garage door openers, all of the things. We wanted to be able to come in and do that full thing. And so, Alan was the one who spearheaded a lot of that. He was really passionate about the garage space. A couple of things that I think apply to both this and Pink's is that, they are low barrier to entry. You don't have to have a lot of, certifications or licenses in order to do it. So that makes it a lot easier for somebody as a franchise owner to walk into this without having had any experience. We can coach you through it. And so that I think was one of the big things. We also, for Garage Up specifically, we really like the subcontractor model. It falls in line a lot with what we were already doing with that one painter. So it was really easy to implement. And it's just kind of a natural extension. Painting, garages, it all makes sense. For Pink's Window Services, we actually acquired them. And so that was started by two guys, Brandon and Carter, here in Austin, Texas. They started it in 2020, and they had built a really successful business here in Austin, Texas, but they also were feeling that desire to grow and expand. And it was a really natural partnership with ResiBrands for them to come on board with us. They have very much the same values, the same kind of culture of their business is very much in line. And it also has it is a low barrier to entry business. Almost anybody can wash a window. Like you don't need any special skills in order to do it. Maybe we can coach you in how to be more efficient in washing a window, but you don't need any license. I don't think there's anywhere in the country where you need a license to wash a window. So just low barrier to entry, low upfront investment businesses that can rely on systems and on branding are really kind of what we're looking for. And we will be expanding. There will be additional ones in time. And I'm sure that some of those will have kind of more licensing required and whatnot. But really, when we started, we wanted to start with these businesses that were low upfront costs, easy entry. Those were the things that we were looking for.
No, that's super helpful, Kristen. And what about when you talk about like painters? Are you guys looking for actual painters as franchise owners, or what is kind of that candidate that you guys are seeking look like?
Yeah, so, we are not looking for anybody who has any sort of experience with painting. You don't have to have experience in any of these businesses in order to be able to operate them successfully. We are looking for people who align with our culture. We're really big on excellence. We're really big on kindness. We're really big on entrepreneurship. And so, we're looking for people who align with our culture and who are looking to follow a proven system that we know is going to work. And so, I would almost say that sometimes it's helpful if they don't have any experience in the painting industry, because they can kind of just start from scratch. They will learn so much about paint. You'll probably learn more about paint drying than you could ever want to know. But you are going to become the mayor of paint in your area and really be the person who's kind of spreading the word about it. And so when we're looking for people, it's not necessarily that they need experience in any of these industries. We're looking for people who are open to following the system and who are really big culture fits. Those are kind of the things that are biggest for us.
That's super helpful, Kristen. And I know the timing's a little off. I know we have about 8 minutes left, although the recording's a few minutes shy. I want to be kind of wary of your time at this point, but we kind of talked about kind of like concerns, I guess, business ownership. We talked about like networking, building those connections. When you talk about like that ideal franchise owner, they don't need to be someone that's actually painting. When they're running the business, do they need to be like professional sales, networking guru, or how do they have the most success in terms of those skills? Can someone that is an introvert have success, and how can they like develop the confidence that they could be a business owner?
Yeah, I think really anybody can be successful in this if you're willing to follow the system and learn and be willing to push yourself and grow. We will train you in sales. We will train you in networking. We will train you how to do all of that. You don't need to be, super extroverted, super outgoing. You don't need to be that. Some of our most successful business owners are, a little bit more introverted. They're a little bit more, shortened to the point, and that's okay. They are still following the system. They're still going out and networking. You don't have to be just kind of this like super effusive personality in order to be successful with networking or with any of those things. I see all personality types being successful. You do need to be willing to push outside of your comfort zone sometimes. You do need to go to networking meetings. You do need to go and interact with people. But it is something that we can train you and something we can teach you how to do. You don't need to come in already having that experience, but you do need to be willing to learn and grow.
No, that's super helpful, Kristen. And as I know, like the time's winding down, one of the things I definitely want to ask you about that I think ResiBrands does a really great job about is, when someone actually signs the franchise agreement, what does it actually look like to get that territory opened up? And then I understand you also have a lot of franchisees that are buying multiple territories at once. Can you talk to me about what that looks like? And part of the reason why I asked is just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to someone that recently made the investment into that one painter. And he actually bought, I think, 6 to 9 different territories. And his plan was, he said he could open up all those territories really within the next kind of 12 months. So I'd be curious, what does it look like to ramp up a single unit and then get that additional unit launched?
Yeah. So from the moment that you sign, you're paired with a franchise coach who walks with you through the entire process. Everything from getting the business set up, making sure that all of the, pieces are in place in order to be able to start operating the business, getting all of the collateral, the truck, all of these different things. We really spend a lot of time with you doing that. Then the coach is helping you with launching your business and then making sure that it has a really strong, healthy launch, scaling it, doing all of these different things. You have a coach throughout the lifetime of your business who is going to be there and help you every step of the process. If you have one unit, 60 to 90 days, your launch, you're ready to go. We're helping you and supporting you. It's a pretty quick launch. If you're doing multiple units, typically what we recommend is launching 2 or 3 units at a time. We don't necessarily recommend doing one and then one and then one. At that point, we really want to have multiple units launching at the same time. Still within 60 to 90 days. 60 to 90 days, we're going to get typically like 3 units launched for somebody. The reason that we do that is because you're going to have territory managers in charge of each of those individual territories. What you don't want to happen is launching one unit with a territory manager who's floating out there on their own, and the success of your business is dependent on one kind of middle management level salesperson. You don't want the success of your business totally dependent on that one person. You want it to be a group of people who are able to support each other and help each other, also have some friendly competition, be able to have each other's backs when things come up. You want more of that team at that point if you're doing multiple units. So you'll launch, typically 3 territories at the start, and then the additional territories typically within 12 months at that point, and you'll have your full business up and running by then. But even with all of our growth and even with everything, we're still getting people launched 60 to 90 days every single time. Wow. It's been really great.
That's incredible, Kristen. That's fast and efficient. I guess one thing I'd want to highlight is, I know even just so I was at the Titus Center of Franchising with a franchise consultant, honestly, a leading franchise consultant that actually bought into Pink's window services. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, I think just a couple months ago, he was saying the support staff, it was around 30 members. And I was telling him at this point, it's over 70 members. And that's a short span of a couple months, which one of the things that I'm always telling candidates is, how is that franchise continually investing into you? How has the growth changed over the couple of years? And it's very obvious with ResiBrands, you guys are continually putting a lot into the growth of franchise owners. And it really is that two-way relationship. And Kristen, my final question of the episode for you is, so I followed you on LinkedIn. I've seen you do a lot of posts with your daughter, with your family involved. And, for me, with the podcast, Conquer the Mind, a lot of people are lost in life. And I really wish, the first 21 years of my life, I was just so lost. So I would do anything and I had really, really great mentors in my life. Don't get me wrong. It was just internally, I always had to go my own direction at some point to kind of get to where I am today. But I'd be curious, you've been a business owner, a college advisor, a lot of kids nowadays are just very lost in life, just trying to figure out not even what they want to do. There's so many different things out there nowadays, distractions, social media. I'd be curious, how do you, what are your best practices in terms of raising your family, and how are you why is it so important to kind of get them involved in terms of learning the stuff that you're doing as well, having them in videos with you, learning about business, entrepreneurship? Why is that so important to you, Kristen?
Yeah, I love this. Clara's going to be delighted that she was brought up today, so thank you. Yes, I think it's just kind of naturally what's happened in our family. Dad and I are just both so involved in our businesses and in the franchising world that our kids hear us talking about these things, and then they naturally want to know more. But beyond that, I really want them all to have a good understanding of money, of how the world works, what it means to start a business. I worked with so many students in my time that, came to college and came to adulthood just not prepared. And that's not to say that their parents did anything wrong. It was just a piece that was missing that they didn't have a full grasp of. And so, from a pretty early age, especially my oldest daughter, Clara, she's about to be 8. She has wanted to learn how to make money. She's wanted to do all of these different things. And so we've done lemonade stands, and we've participated in little kids farmers markets, and we've done all of these things. And she more recently has been asking questions about franchising and what that looks like. And she now really wants to sell a franchise herself. So she's out there hustling. First day of second grade, she went out and asked everybody in her class if any of their parents wanted to buy a franchise. So that kid's a hustler. She knows what she wants. I think part of that is just kind of inherent in who she is. But, as much as I can expose our kids to what it looks like so that they can have an understanding of that, and whether they want to go into business for themselves someday or not, that's not really, I'm happy either way. Like they can go and do whatever they want in life. I'm not looking for them to fulfill a particular career path, but I do want them to have an understanding and appreciation for the many different paths that you can walk in life. And entrepreneurship is an absolutely valid career path that I want them to be aware of. And if someday, they're an adult and instead of college, they want to go buy a franchise, then, maybe instead of paying for college, I can help them pay for a franchise fee or something like that. Like I'm open to them exploring those avenues. I want them to know that there's options out there. And for my girls, especially, I want them to see that they can go out there and they can be bosses and they can run the world. And it doesn't have to just be, kind of men that are out there doing this. I want them to feel empowered as women in entrepreneurship as well. And so those are just kind of things that I think about in terms of parenting. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but they're having a lot of fun in the meantime. So we're good.
No, that's incredible. That's all you can ask for, that they're fun, they're living in the moment, they're present. I think those are really, really powerful lessons, Kristen. It's really great to see. And I'm excited to see maybe your daughter will be the next franchisor with her own concept or something like that. But let her know I'm hiring if she wants us to award some franchise with JD Strategic. I'll be over here, Kristen.
Awesome. She'll love that. She'll be down.
No, that's awesome. It'll be really exciting to watch that. And, it's really important, anyone having that mentor in life is just so powerful. And I always, Kristen, if you have to go, I always like to kind of wrap up the episode in a final 60 seconds. But kind of my final takeaways where I love the idea in business, that first step is the hardest step. It's so hard to get started. So the idea that franchising allows you to fast track that process to business ownership and have a team of mentors that are all surrounded you for success. Like it's so, so unique to have people that want to see you succeed. Your success is based off the other person's success. So I think it's just really powerful. And, when I asked you about finding the right opportunity, the right time, just there is no right opportunity. It's really about, are you going to miss out on that next opportunity because you're not taking this opportunity? So I think it's just really important, listen to your heart, your mind. What is things telling you? If you're weighing things out, you're leaning yes, you're leaning no, just listen to your gut feeling. If you feel there's a red flag, there probably is a red flag in the process. But if you're going through the process, you get more excited, you've continually thought about business ownership, then yeah, this is probably something you want to consider. And just the idea of if you want to be independent in business ownership or in franchising, do you want a team in franchising or do you want to be in business by yourself independently? And the biggest question I asked in that scenario is just the sustainability of independent business ownership versus franchising. We saw during COVID, very, very difficult for a mom and pop to stay above ground, whereas the franchises were able to acquire more resources. And at the end of it, although they took a slight bump, they ended up, 10x stronger at the end of things. So I think it's just really important to consider. And just the idea, one of the things you were talking about with your husband is you like networking, you like building connections, but how can you monetize that? And that's really what business is all about, finding a passion and then figuring out how you can actually monetize that passion or that problem to help other people, because the money you make is just a result of the impact and the people that you're helping. So I think it's really important that you and your husband were thinking about how can you help other people and how can you monetize that as well, so that you can really kind of combine the passion and the profit. And I think my final takeaway is something that we've really addressed throughout the episode. Is just the idea of mentorship, connections, and the idea of proactively seeking mentors, and also working on yourself on the daily basis so that you can potentially attract that mentor as well. So, Kristen, I appreciate your time playing the theme song. I appreciate your time on the Conquer the Mind podcast. I had a great time, Kristen.
Thank you so much. I had a great time too. Thanks.
Anyone, if you found value, like, share, comment, subscribe, help out the algorithm, and let's conquer the day, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in.